I thought Buffalo was going to win this weekend. They weren't as reliant at the end of this season on Josh Allen. They developed a run game. They drafted and developed new weapons. Dalton Kincaid, James Cook, Khalil Shakir. They could blow you out. They could win close. They felt more efficient. They fired their OC. They were on track. It really felt like something. And they did so much well against Kansas City. 3 75-yard touchdown drives. They had more first downs and more total plays and dominated time of possession, and they were great in the red zone. And they had, look, at third down, they were 7 of 14, and they were at home. And yet yesterday they reverted back to Josh Allen, save us. They put up the bat signal. They needed him to 39 pass attempts, 12 rushing attempts. He had to overcome a weird fake punt call, couple of big drops by receivers, couldn't stop Kansas City's run game, much of that due to injuries. Kicker missed a game-tying field goal. This was the Buffalo I thought was in the rear-view mirror. I don't have a problem with a quarterback having to make some throws or occasionally go to his feet and have to move. But good God, it was the 6th time in 10 Bills playoff games that Josh Allen's had to be the leading rusher. The Bills' window is not officially closed. Josh Allen's still in his prime. It's still a well-run operation. But it does feel like it shut a little. Let's be honest. Kansas City now 3-0 in their head in the playoffs. You can see the way the Bills on that last drive where they're running James Cook into the line. They're just trying to eat up the clock. They're thinking about Mahomes when their offense is on the field. That's the way it works with Buffalo. Again, bat signal. Save us. I thought they'd moved out of that. Some new weapons. O-line had a good year. They were running the ball, not Josh dependent. And then yesterday they were. He just could not overcome their mistakes. And I could spend the next 10 minutes hammering the Bills. But let's talk about Kansas City, the winners, again, in this fateful January matchup for Buffalo. Patrick Mahomes did not have to carry the team. A very clean, efficient, and tidy 17 of 23. No picks in his last 5 playoff games. He's 5-0. The run game, dominant in the second half. They barely had the ball in the first half, yet only trailed on the road 17-13. Like Gronk, Travis Kelce, aging, nope. Big play Travis Kelce. How about MVS? Who knew? He made big plays. In fact, Kansas City, and it's just shocking because we watched them all year long, and we were frustrated all year long, and they were making mistakes all year long. But the Chiefs had 8 plays yesterday of 20 or more yards. The Bills had none. Isn't that remarkable considering what we watched from both teams this year? Kansas City averaged 7.7 yards a play. That's more than any offense has averaged all weekend long. Smart, well-coached, efficient, and this is what champions, I guess, do. All year long, we watch them cobble together drives and find a way to win. And there were some ugly Sundays. Yet in the biggest moment, in the biggest game, Kansas City players played above themselves. All year long, Travis Kelce, limping, aging, distracted. No, not really at all. He was amazing and wide open. They call it the heart of a champion. What it felt like to me was the rising of a perceived dead champion. Everybody had the shovels, myself included. I just thought this was a vulnerable Kansas City team. But do you realize they only faced 5 third downs all game? They were so efficient, they didn't need third down. The Bills, for the record, were very good on third down. But Kansas City didn't panic, only a couple of penalties. They're like the Patriots dynasty, except they have a quarterback who occasionally throws sidearm. Pass protection, again, excellent. Mahomes, efficient. Running game, dominant. Coaching, excellent. If McCole Hardman doesn't fumble at the 1, this baby would have been put to bed earlier. Here's Josh Allen after.
Sucks. Losing sucks. Losing to them, losing to anybody at home sucks. Here, there, it doesn't matter. Losing sucks. I don't know what else to say. I think it's just, again, we gotta find a way to score one more point than they do.
By the way, Andy Reid, and we know he's a great coach, deserves a lot of credit. This offensive line, Greg Cosell came on earlier this year and said Mahomes doesn't trust the offensive tackles here. Do you realize Mahomes has yet to be sacked in 64 playoff dropbacks? I don't think it's a coincidence that many of those players for Kansas City who had struggled, we had doubted, rose in the biggest moment of the season. And that's got to be coaching, among other things, from Andy Reid. Well, sometimes we confuse a great story with a great team. Let's talk Detroit Lions. Like Joe Flacco in Cleveland. Everybody's like, oh, that was a great story. He wasn't having a great year. Houston Texans season. That's not a great team. It's a great story. C.J. Stroud, DeMeco Ryans. And these Lions, they're a great story too. But this roster, that pass rusher, that running back, that tight end, that safety, these weapons, Detroit can match San Francisco player for player. Not quite as old, but arguably just as good, as just as deep. The star of the Lions is not the quarterback, though he's been excellent, or the coach, and he's been surprisingly good. It's the front office. The Lions' rookies are Pro Bowl level. Their second, third-year players are some of the best players in the league. Sam Laporta could be the second-best tight end. Penei Sewell, Aiden Hutchinson, Jahmyr Gibbs. Like, he's as dynamic and twitchy as any running back in the league. The last 3 drafts, they've hit minimum 6 home runs. Not just good rookies, good second-year guys, like top of the league good. And Jared Goff, with time to throw, we saw this in Los Angeles. He's really, really good. He wins a lot. He's now in his second NFC championship game. It's not all McVay, believe it or not. Don't confuse Detroit with a Cinderella Story. You know, that small college basketball team at a private school in the South that gets to the Sweet 16. No, that's not what this is. Detroit has dudes at safety, linebacker, tight end, offensive tackle, running back, wide receiver. They got dudes everywhere. And they're doing championship things. They draft, they're patient, they develop, they found a quarterback, they protected him, they added weapons. They don't have great corners. You can beat them deep. But, I mean, Baltimore doesn't have great corners, and San Francisco doesn't. The truth is, all 4 teams going forward, you could say one of their weaknesses, corners, maybe outside of Kansas City, but that's a weakness in the National Football League. The NFC Championship is where Detroit has landed, and it's actually where they belong. One of the cool things about this team is you saw it coming. We picked them to win the division. You picked them to win the division. And so often, hope and optimism fade in January, right? The Cinderella stuff. That's not what this is. This is what championship teams do. Draft, develop, get guys. They haven't overspent in free agency. No dumb moves. It's smart. It's tough. It's relentless. Championship-level football. And I don't know what the odds makers think, but I think they're a younger version of San Francisco with a better quarterback. I think they got dudes absolutely everywhere, and here's their coach, the inspiring Dan Campbell, after.
You guys are unbelievable, man. I'm telling you, we talked about it all year. This started a long time ago. You're built for this. Do you know how hard it is to win this league in the playoffs? Yes, sir. Do you understand what you're doing right now? What we're capable of? That's 2. All right, that's 2. We got 2 to go.
You know what's interesting about the Kansas City-Buffalo game is that a lot of times when you're betting a game or you're doing fantasy football or you're a fan, you expect stuff after 17 weeks. And J-Mac, what I found fascinating was Kansas City all season long. I mean, the Chiefs games are always, prime time. We watch all the Chiefs games. You don't have to live in Kansas City. This is not baseball. You watch the games. And all year long, I thought I had a read on Kansas City. you're like, you know what? They don't really have a true one. A lot of drops. They make a lot of mistakes. They can't even line up right. And yet in the biggest moment, biggest game on the road, they were almost flawless.
Yeah.
Protection, penalties. Again, if they don't fumble at the one, the game's wrapped up. I mean, to play that well with that group, the mix of young and old, in that moment, that's not what I expected to see from Kansas. And as I'm watching it, I'm like, this is what great coaching looks like, great quarterback play. And again, Mahomes was excellent, but they didn't ask him to carry the team. The run game was great, couple of big plays by MVS. Travis Kelce, we're all grabbing the shovel on him. He's wide open.
How many drops for the Chiefs yesterday? I didn't see any. It was like all season. That's a big issue. Colin, I feel terrible for Josh Allen. I mean, that's just a brutal ending for him. He didn't throw the football down the field. They turned him into a game manager, did they not? Like no explosive plays the entire game? What happened to the Buffalo offense? High octane down the field, like nothing.
Yeah.
The Chiefs' defensive game plan was spectacular.
Yeah, well, this is clearly the best defense in the Mahomes run. This is the best defense. It's young, but they have, front offices matter. The star of the NFC Championship is, for Detroit, it's the upstairs guys. It's the executives. That is a stacked roster. You start looking at Baltimore. All of us rolled our eyes at Roquan Smith. Why would you pay that for a linebacker? That defense completely shut the Texans down. Yeah. They couldn't get into the end zone. The Texans dropped 45 on Cleveland's defense, couldn't move it in the second half. And then you start looking at Kansas City once they paid Mahomes. How many good young defensive players have they hit on? These front offices, players can only overcome so much. Like there's really good guys upstairs in these offices because it feels right. Yeah. Baltimore's roster, Kansas City figuring out a way to get rid of defensive players, go cheap on defense and pay offense. Detroit's front office, and San Francisco, John Lynch for years. Some of those guys are old, but that's a star-studded roster.
It sounds like maybe you're leaning Chiefs against the Ravens. I'm sure you saw the line. Did you see the – I was surprised. That's 3.5.
I have strong convictions on both games.